I mean, I think that
For us personally?
for us,
Yeah.
but I mean, I think that, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I'd say one record that we all share, I think, as far as very influential, and I think a record that's very important to us, if I want to just pick one, I mean, there's been a lot of great records over the last 25 years, but Talk Talk's Laughing Stock is a record that we all sort of found and bonded over years ago in the early phases of this band, and it's continued to be one of those albums that, you know, you check in with periodically in your life as you kind of, you're moving through it. And I've found that it was an important record to me when I first discovered it in 1991, and it's continued to be relevant and appropriate in my life since then. It's really grown with me, and in that way sort of become a really good soundtrack for a lot of things for me, but I know for the rest of my bandmates as well. I mean, I don't want to overstate it.
No, it's one of those records that, you know, there's some records that you listen to when you're kind of discovering music on your own accord, and you bond with them, and then as you get older, you lose kind of your relationship kind of withers with that particular record, that particular band, because it just no longer finds its way into your life. Yeah. But I mean, Talk Talk's Laughing Stock specifically is, you know, one of those records that there's still things to discover in it. You know, almost, I guess 20 years later, you can put that thing on and still discover things about it. You know, sounds within the record that you didn't hear. You know, you'd never heard before. And I think for all of us too. I mean, I think that, you know, I would also throw Robert Smith up to the top of that list as well.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that you know, The Cure were an incredibly important band for all of us when we were, all of us now, let alone when we were younger. And you know, I think that especially Disintegration was a record that, you know, it recently was reissued on really nice thick vinyl in the States, and you know, I brought it home, put it on, and just similarly with Laughing Stock, I just hear things in that record, you know, over 20 years later that still they still move me, and I still find it incredibly inspiring. And I think that there are the obvious people. There's, you know, I mean, Kurt Cobain obviously was very influential. Nirvana was very influential. But I think for me personally, and I think for our band, I think we probably have taken more inspiration, continued inspiration at that from Robert Smith than I think we necessarily did from Kurt Cobain. Although certainly Nirvana was a band that we all still love and loved at the time. You know, I've went on record within the band a number of times saying that I think that the Arcade Fire are going to be a band that in 25 years we all look back on, and in the same way that, you know, people look at U2's legacy now. Like when we look back at, you know, I feel the Arcade Fire are making their, you know, their Boy, their War, their Unforgettable Fire, you know, they may have just made their Joshua Tree with, you know, the Suburbs. So it's like, I feel that we'll look back at that band as, you know, a band from this era that truly kind of took things to the next level. And, you know, I think that one thing that's great about this era we live in now is that there's such a wide middle class of bands that are able to kind of go out and play places like Brixton and you know, have people come out and enjoy themselves, and, you know, are able to make a pretty modest to, you know, good living for themselves playing music. And I think that that's something that's very different from when we started in the late 90s, certainly in the States. But I do feel that the Arcade Fire is one of those bands that we will look back on as being incredibly important, and, you know, that they will have a body of work that we will look back at the same way we look back at the U2 catalog.